Good morning, everyone. Today I am in Lycoming County, more specifically Williamsport, or I believe it's Williamsport. It might be Old Lycoming Township. I'm just out for a morning run, so I thought I'd just bring my GoPro along and see what we see. Some beautiful wildflowers here. And then there's a historical marker here. There was a bridge built here in 1889 by the Groton Bridge and Manufacturing Company. So it was a 266-foot wrought iron bridge, and it connected Newbury to Williamsport. So I think what I want to do is I want to kind of run along this dike. There is a trail over there, and every now and then kind of pop down and see what we got going on by the side of the creek, which I believe is the Lycoming Creek. It's either the Lycoming Creek or the Loyalsock Creek. I get the two confused all the time. So anyway, that initial bridge was replaced in the 1980s with this quite boring bridge. But being that this was such an industrial area at one time, I think we're going to find some, I don't know, possibly some pretty cool stuff. So I see it like a set of stairs right over here. So I am absolutely going to be going off trail quite often. Again, just beautiful flowers along the trail here. And over here we have Bowman Field, or Bowman's Field, which is pretty historic. I believe it was initially built back in the 1920s. They had not a major league team, but they had a professional team. I believe they were the Williamsport Grays. And the Grays played here, I believe, until like 1962. Obviously, they've done some work on this park. And there is a minor league team that plays here now. So I'm not sure if they're single A, double A, triple A, but I think they're affiliated with the Philadelphia Phillies, but I'm not 100% sure. And they are the Williamsport Crosscutters. And I almost feel if I continue on this trail, we're gonna come to an old abandoned railroad bridge. I've seen it before, but I didn't have my camera with me. And I'm hoping it's down this way and not that way. Not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure we're going the right direction. If not, I'll find my way back to where it is located. So the heavy traffic over there, that would be Route 15. So I think we're gonna head over this way. And I believe if we stay on this trail, we're gonna be a lot closer to the actual creek. So you see somebody preparing the field over here. And baseball is huge in Williamsport. There's quite a history of baseball in Williamsport. So what we're looking at right here, Carl E. Stott's Field. And right here is where Little League Baseball began. And a lot of people, when they think of Williamsport, they think of the Little League World Series. which is actually played in Williamsport. Not on this field though. So I actually did a video here before, but what's really cool about this, I'm able to walk on the field, and I think that's because they're working here, so I might get kicked out. But I thought I would just take a quick look, and you can see there's somebody up there working on the field, so I'm gonna get out of here. But here is the field. There's a historical little museum over there, and this field is where Carl E. Stotts invented Little League Baseball, basically. So I'm just gonna walk over here. Hopefully I won't get kicked out. Get a quick look at the center field wall. There it is, Carl E. Stotts, Stotts, not 100% sure, but birthplace of Little League Baseball. So I'm gonna get out of here before I get kicked out. But the Little League World Series is still played in Williamsport. I believe it's in August, maybe early September, not 100% sure. But if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about the birthplace of Little League Baseball, I did a video here probably about 1.5 years ago. So I will use that as my end screen, and I'll also put the link in the description. All right, so we are gonna climb back up this hill to the trail. Definitely gonna get a workout today. All right, so this you might see, and I'm gonna walk down there and check this out. I have no idea what this was. I don't know. Let's get a closer look, see if we can figure it out. So if you're in this area and you're kind of into, you know, looking for ruins and adventures, just so you know, this is that baseball field we were talking about. And then you climb up the hill, you're on this trail, climb down the hill, and we see this. So I don't know what this was, but I'm gonna get a little closer and see if maybe we can find some clues. It's huge. I'd say that's got to be at least 25 feet high. And I'm not overestimating. At least I don't think so. All I have is my GoPro, so I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get a picture of me standing in front of it so we get perspective. So it is on this old concrete base. It's still, and you can see we still have these iron bars up there, kind of like a crisscross. So why was this here? I do not know. Now that's a far drop off, probably about 15 feet down. And you can probably hear rushing water. That is the Loyalsock or Lycoming Creek. Not 100% sure which one. I believe it's the Loyalsock Creek, but I'm not sure. So anyway, I'll be putting a lot of notes on the video. It's the old iron. So I don't know, people, what was this for? One thing I do like, and I'm kind of surprised, no graffiti. Williamsport's a pretty, I mean, I'm not going to necessarily call it a city, but it's one of the larger boroughs. So normally when something is heavily populated, you see a lot of graffiti. All right, let's head down here. We have the old stonework. And what's interesting about this, there is no mortar in between this stonework. So not sure what used to be here. I'd love to know if you're from the Williamsport area, or you just have an idea what this was at one time. Please leave it in the comments. Something to do with a railroad, possibly? Being so close to the creek, maybe something to do with some sort of a mill or the timber industry? I just don't know. That said, it's cool that they kept it here, right? Maybe we can make a little trail down to the creek, which will give us a clue, as I'm hopefully not walking through poison ivy. I know it gets pointed out to me a lot. I walk through poison ivy a lot. I might be one of those rare people that really doesn't have an allergic reaction to it. But one thing you'll notice, see, it's really hot out today, but I wear these sleeves. Gives me sun protection. Also, less areas the ticks can get in. And here we have what I believe are Japanese beetles. You can see how they just kill these plants, right? I mean, look at them. They're going to town, eating and probably doing something else. All right, let's, I don't think I'm gonna go down that trail, but I think I can work my way over to the creek. We might find a easier way to do so, because I want to see what's on the other side of the creek, because quite possibly that will give us some clues to what this was. As I work my way through all this garbage, hoping we don't run into any snakes. But it does look like there's a little clearing here, so I wouldn't call this a trail by any stretch of the imagination, but there is a little bit of a clearing, and there's some evidence of people being down here. All right, guys, so don't do what I just did. Look at that. Quite literally, I stepped right here and I sunk in at least, well, here you go, at least 10 to 12 inches. And then I pulled my leg out, almost like quicksand, right? Oh, here, it's here again. So I guess there's a reason people don't come down here. I mean, I don't think it's quicksand, but I got to tell you the truth. My leg went down quick. So I'm careful where I'm walking. I don't know if we're gonna see any clues. I keep looking over here to see if there's anything over here that would relate to this structure that we were just looking at. I don't see anything, so me and my very muddy feet are gonna get out of here. All right, let's work our way back up to the trail. All right, so over on this side of the trail, you'll notice there is a, what would you call that? I guess for skateboarders, right? A skateboarding rink. rink? I don't think so, but anyway. So an area for skateboarders, just call it that. And if you look over here, you will see an old, what I believe to be a railroad bridge. So that is pretty cool. Here's the railroad bridge, right? And then you got the creek, and we have whatever those old ruins are over there. So maybe it had something to do with the railroad. I just don't know. And then over on the left side of the trail, we have a couple more baseball fields. I'm going to guess that baseball is probably more popular in the Williamsport area per population than anywhere else in the state. I don't know that to be factual, but I'm kind of thinking that is the case. I see baseball fields all over the place, and if you come back here later today, you probably see some games going on. But there is a nice view of the railroad bridge as we approach. Beautiful old railroad bridge. So I don't know what rail line this was part of. I'm sure some of my railroad friends out there can answer that question. It does appear as if we can walk across. There is a fence here, but it's torn down. I don't see any no trespassing, so I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Looks safe. Maybe yes, maybe no. You know, when I was crossing the bridge in Manayunk, you may have watched that video. I crossed over the Schuylkill River, and I was really scared. And I got a couple comments like, you know, what are you scared of? But I think the reason I was so scared, it was really high. It was really high. It went over the Schuylkill, and it was more beat up than this. And it was also kind of windy, so it shook. This, I don't think, is going to be any big deal. So let's proceed across. And this metal grating feels a lot more solid than the metal grating that was in Manayunk. So just walking along these old rail ties. And it's not a real far walk either. Whereas, I don't know the distance of that last bridge I crossed in Manayunk, but it felt like it went on forever. So I do want to cross fairly quick because possibly you're not supposed to be up here. I don't know. I never know with things like this. I mean, there are no trespassing signs, so I think we're probably good. And quite honestly, if I fell from here, I would be really hurt. I would break a couple legs, but I certainly wouldn't drown because the water's not deep. And we're not that high up. Not that insanely high up. And if you didn't see the video I made in Manayunk, I'll leave the description for it in the video, and maybe I'll put it on the end screen. It was along the canal in Manayunk, and it was pretty interesting. So let's take a look down. Actually, we're up a lot higher than I actually thought. So now I'm getting a little scared. I'm not great with heights, but I guess I'm not too bad with it. But here's a view of the creek. And just around that bend over in that direction is where that concrete structure was. So maybe it had something to do with the railroad. I just don't know. All right, so we pretty much made it. Just another look at that bridge from the other side. And again, we have a fence with an opening. So you would think eventually they might put a trail here to connect to the trail here. So we are now on the other side, and there's a trail here. This looks like some type of waste management over there. But there is a trail that goes back this way. Not sure I want to go back there. But I think I might, because if this was the rail line, right? Obviously, acting like I know my railroads. But anyway, if this is the rail line, it only stands to reason this was the old rail bed. So I am gonna walk down here a little bit. I don't believe it is private property because there is a fence, and like I said, there's some type of a waste management or recycling. But you know, whenever I go down these areas early in the morning, and it is, I guess it's not that early, it's about 10 o'clock. This is where homeless people would probably put their tents up. So I do have to be a little careful. Not that homeless people are going to be a problem, but you never know what you're going to run into. And this almost looks like it just kind of becomes a dead end here. And then it's, excuse the traffic noise, and then there's just like a lot here, and it's fenced off again, and this is that recycling center. So all right, so there's our friend the bridge again. I am making my way down the, I guess this is a dike, right? I do know that Williamsport and Montoursville, Old Lycoming Township, a lot of those areas sustained a lot of damage in 1972 with Hurricane Agnes. So I'm guessing that's why they built a lot of this, maybe. All right, so I'm gonna work my way over here and let's check out the creek. Oh, some of these rocks are a little shaky. I wouldn't want to fall here. I just heard something down in the water, so I don't know, maybe it's somebody swimming. We do have clothes under the overpass. I don't want to surprise anybody. So maybe we'll head over towards the bridge instead. All right, so I'm making my way down to the creek. I'm kind of hoping we can walk along the bank of the creek. Then I'm thinking I would probably sink in here again like I did earlier. So I think we can probably just walk through this. I'm not going to say it's a trail, but you can kind of see where I'm going. As I mentioned before, when I go on these adventures, I always wear long pants, no matter how hot it is. So definitely decreases the odds of being bit by a tick But look at that, beautiful bridge, right? Are they gonna keep it here for historical value? Are they gonna tear it down? Are they gonna keep the bridge, maybe put a trail that you can cross? We just don't know. So I wanna get a little closer. And to me, to be honest with you, these rail bridges pretty much look the same to me. I love them, I think they're very cool. But as far as how they're constructed, pretty much looks the same to me. But I do know that I have a lot of viewers that sometimes comment on the actual construction of these bridges, so I try to get as close as possible, and I'm out for sort of a run, or at least I was supposed to be running, right? So all I have is my GoPro. I can't zoom in. So there it is, the bridge with no name. I'm sure there is a name, but I do not know what railroad or what this bridge was referred to as. Just a slightly closer look. So you might notice on these rocks what appears to be tar, and I saw a lot of that, like big splashes of that up on the bridge. Did you hear that noise? That sounded like it came from up there. I assure you there's nobody up there, but who knows, ghost train, right? So I'm thinking maybe there's something that drips off these rails. I know they use chemicals to preserve them so they would hold up in the weather. But you can see the tar drippings down here on the rocks, which in turn probably polluted the creek. Interesting, right? Here we have a culvert. Wow, I'm thinking those doors, maybe they just automatically open when the floodwater comes through. Love exploring these areas. And when I see a rock like this, I mean, this doesn't look like a tool would have done this. Fossils maybe of some sort. These craters, maybe some sort of fossil? I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. Look at these. Now these are really small little wildflowers, but look how blue they are. That is beautiful. That has to be one of the most beautiful blues that I've ever seen. Now that's a scary. Did you hear that? That was like there were a couple ravens up on the bridge. They're saying, stay off. So doing this is quite a workout. Running is great, but when you're climbing hills like this, it gives you a really good workout. And I get bored if I go to the gym. So I kind of like just exploring. This is just an old piece of glass, and you might say, Jen, what's the big deal? But I kind of like that blue. If you hadn't noticed, blue is my favorite color. But that's pretty. They don't make a lot of things with blue glass anymore. All right, so we are not crossing over using the abandoned bridge. I'm just crossing over this bridge. But you know what? I see another bridge over there. Oh God, I really want to check that out. But that might be an active line. Anyway, you probably cannot see what I see, but there is a bridge over there. But I really do think that's private property, and I think it might be an active line. So I'm not going to venture over there today. Possibly an exploration for another day, especially if there's somebody from this area that maybe has some info on that. They could let me know if it's something that could or should be explored. So anyway, with that, I'm gonna end my video here. Thank you so much for joining me. If you could give it a like, it's always appreciated. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much, and you have a wonderful weekend. Take care, everybody.